Hey everyone, welcome back to Pros Before Bros. This is Hope. Sorry for the long delay. I usually try to post a video on the weekends. Like my goal is usually Fridays or Saturdays. These last 2 weeks have been kind of whirlwind for me. I actually started a new medication. I am a diabetic, so I have to take insulin, and there's a new insulin that my doctor wants me to try. So last couple weeks have just been trying to adjust to it. It's a once a week injection, and it just makes you feel like crap for at least 4 days. And I think I'm getting to that point where I'm over the slump. I just have to, do one more injection. I think my body will be used to it by then. But yeah, it's just kind of put a dent on things in terms of recording. So I do want to talk about some books I read. I actually read four different books, um, about three different books, and I DNF'd one book that I couldn't even get through it. But I'll probably talk to you about that book at some other point. Tonight I was going to just touch base on one book in particular that I don't like this book, you guys. It's a rant. It's a rant. I'm going to be ranting about one book. And I'm also going to be ranting about my next door's neighbors or whoever that is that's blowing blowing off fireworks at 11 o'clock at night on a weeknight. Really? Okay, sorry about that. If you hear banging, it's the neighbors. They obviously don't have anything better to do with their lives except for keep other people up way past 11 o'clock at night. So yeah, we're just going to jump right into this. So I did read a book. I actually finished two books today. And then last week I finished up a reread of Anne of Green Gables. I usually like to read that around fall time because it's one of my favorite books. It's my love. I love Gilbert Blythe, and each time I read, I just fall more in love with him. But anyhow, the book that I'm going to be talking about today is actually an ebook. So I'm going to apologize in advance because I don't have a great copy of the image of the cover is a little low quality. So, but here is the cover, and honestly, I can't read it, and I can't imagine you guys can read it either. But the book is called Consent. It's by author by the name of Nancy Olin. She evidently wrote two different books, Beauty and Always and Forever, and I pray to God her writing style was a lot better in those books than what it was in here. And this is published by Simon Pulse, which I believe is a smaller publishing house in New York. So anyway, the book, I don't even know why I picked it up. I think I picked it up off of one of my ebook newsletters I usually get that gives me recommendations of like bargain books out there. So they can range from being freebies up to being $2.99. Sometimes they have bestsellers, sometimes they have these lower unknown books by up and coming authors, if you will. And I think this is what happened. I probably picked this up because it was a freebie and thought, well, it's free. What do I have to lose? Well, obviously, I have 2.5 hours of time to lose that I'm never going to get back because this book was just terrible. So, put nicely on my 5-star rating system. I personally would give it a 1, and I think that's being very generous. And here's the reasons why I'm saying this. This book, it just, those books that just, like the plots just sent a trickle down your spine. It just makes you feel dirty reading it. This is one of those books. And it's not the fun, clean, good old, is there clean smut? Yeah, smut, It's not anything like that at all. So the book is a young adult contemporary. So it's primary target is young adults, particularly the way that this book was written. I'm guessing its primary focus is for a young adult female to pick this book up. So, kids ranging from probably 15 and up reading this book. I just don't like it. So let's just jump right into it. So this book follows 3 characters, but the primary character we're looking at is going to be Beatrice Kim. Beatrice Kim is 17 years old. She is a senior, so she's going through the stage of life where she's just trying to figure out who she is and where she belongs and where she wants to be. So Beatrice Kim and her best friend Plum is in this book as well. Plum is also 17 years old, but she's very driven and she knows what she wants to do. She wants to go to Harvard. It's already in her mind. Why do they always pick Harvard though? Like some books get away with it, and then sometimes it just seems like lazy writing, and I feel like in this case it was just lazy writing. Like the author just wanted to put something in there that seems unattainable, but for some reason it always works out for these people. But anyhow, so Plum is under the impression that B is going to want to go with her to Harvard and do whatever she decides to pursue. In this case, B's thinking about going into pre-law, but her heart's not set on it. Okay, that's great. Fast forward. She goes to a music theory class, or music history, excuse me. Later on in the day, like the opening chapter is basically she is having lunch with her best friend Plum, and they're talking about this trip to Harvard that they're planning. And B is essentially just all along on the ride in the conversation. She doesn't really show any interest or anything like that. She's just like, whatever. So she goes later on to her music history class, and by the blackboard is standing a tall Adonis, and he has shoulder length curly dark hair and just strong muscles in his back, and he's just wonderful. And he turns around and he's a British god, and he's supposed to be her teacher. He's a substitute teacher. His name is Mr. Rossi. Mr. Rossi, that some of the kids call him by first name, by the name of Dane. I don't know about you guys, but if I ever called my teachers by their first name, my ass was usually in the principal's office. But anyhow, you just don't do that, Anyhow, she sees Dane, and it's instant love at first sight. And he's 27, so he's 10 years older than her. And he just takes a liking to her, like, immediately. Like, there's no progression or anything, which, first off, he should have been taking a liking to her to begin with. He's a teacher. He's 10 years older than her. That's just disgusting. But anyway, so he finds her one day playing the piano alone inside their rehearsal rooms at the high school, and he's like, you're a prodigy. You need to go into a conservatory. You should not be going to Harvard for pre-law. So he talks her into going to Harvard for pre-law. I guess I don't have to hold that up. Sorry. He talks her out of that, and he's like, let's go to New York, and I'm going to get you into a meeting with my old professor at Juilliard. Okay, that's great. So literally it doesn't even go in like a time span, doesn't give like, this happened September, this is October. It's very vague. It just kind of flows. So all of a sudden she's in New York, and she does her little auditioning thing with the college. Next thing you know, they're on the beach, just had dinner, and they are in a motel room and they're having sex. A 17-year-old and a 27-year-old. Wow. It just rubbed me the wrong way. And basically, it was instant love. Like, they both were, like, professing their love to each other after this one occurrence. And they go back, and he essentially tells her, you know, this can't happen again. This can't happen again. And she's like, well, I turn 18 in December. And he's like, oh, well, if we could wait till December, then we can have a relationship. That's perfect, because then my contract will be up with your school, and then we can have this relationship, and everything's going to be all hunky-dory. So they get back, and the one thing that I can't stand about this Beatrice character is she's a compulsive liar. Like, she lies about everything. So at the very beginning of the book, she tells her best friend that she has a pianist instructor. She has a piano instructor that comes to her house weekly to help her piano lessons and stuff. And she even gives this lady a name. She gives her Russian descent. I mean, everything. And she's lying. I mean, she just flat out lies. She basically tells this teacher, Mr. Rossi, that she lied about that because she was too ashamed to tell people she was self-taught on the piano. What? That doesn't even make any sense. Who cares if you're self-taught? Like, I would think that would be more credible, to be honest with you. So she lies about that. And then her father, he might as well just be like the McRib of the literary world, because he's only around every once in a blue moon. He like shows up on the fly and pretends to have interest in his daughter, when in reality it's like she's just an afterthought. She lies to him and says that she's going to Harvard with Plum to do like an orientation where they are deciding whether they're going to apply there or not. I don't know exact terminology. Perspective, like a perspective tour in a sense. She lies to them about that. Later on in the book, obviously the police get involved at some point in the book. She lies to them. Somehow that works. Like, the girl is just atrocious. She lies about everything, and she's very, like, all the characters are just one-dimensional. Like, they don't have any depth whatsoever, and that just drove me nuts. It was just lazy writing. I hated this book. I wish I could put it out there in terms of how much I did not like this book. So you guys remember, if you guys are horror fans of any sense at all, like if you like old school Universal horror or just like that whole genre, you'll remember a movie, and I believe it came out in the early 50s or mid 50s, called Plan 9 from Outer Space. It was directed by Ed Wood. And it is literally, if you look up anywhere inside, like any of the movie history books, they're going to tell you this movie was particularly the worst movie ever made for that genre, maybe even of all time. It was a terrible, terrible movie. Well, I think I found the equivalent in this book. This book is the most terrible book I've ever read, ever, and that's saying a lot. And the main reason why I just hated this book, besides the sloppy writing and the fact that it was incredibly unrealistic, the one-dimensional writing of each of the characters had absolutely no depth whatsoever. It's just the subject of this student-teacher relationship. Excuse me, I'm trying not to sneeze right now. Ugh. Allergies, my goodness. So it seems like we play about this student-teacher relationship scenario a lot in writing nowadays, which I understand it's a topic that has come up a lot in the past 2 decades. every news, every time you get on the news, media or such, you'll see situations where there was inappropriate, like an inappropriate relationship with a minor. Um, and I think that our society, for whatever reason, is okay with romanticizing it. And this book is one of those cases. And that really bothers me a lot. Like, it just bothers me. We shouldn't be romanticizing um, a, a love. I honestly don't think it was even love. I really feel like it was lust in this book. Because inside, later on in this book, you discover that Mr. Rossi also fooled around with this other girl who was 15 years old. And he's claiming that he didn't know she was 15. Just, it was bogus. It was such a bogus, lazy writing. I just couldn't stand it. But, yeah. I did not like this book. I just feel like sometimes it's okay to write about this subject if you're going to actually, how do I put this? Like, put morals behind it, maybe like show the wrongdoings of having a relationship, like the implications that you have when you have a relationship such as this, where it's very inappropriate. And I'm sorry, it's borderline abusive. This older gentleman basically taking advantage of a 17-year-old girl that doesn't even know what she wants to go to school with, let alone what she wants to do with her life. You're going to be putting her in a situation where you put her in a sexual relationship with it was just, I did not like this book. I feel like it romanticizes a student, inappropriate relationships. We'll just put it that way. Inappropriate relationships in general. And that scares me in a sense, because a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old can pick up this book and they might think it's a wonderful, wonderful storyline. They might like the fact that, just, ugh. So I went on to Goodreads about this too, just to kind of see if it was just me. And it was shocking to see how many 5-star ratings I saw from readers say that they wanted a sequel. No, you don't want to have a sequel to a book like this. Not only was the writing so poor and just hard to get through, like seriously, this book took 2.5 hours to read for me. But it was rough. I had a hard time reading this book without just kind of like feeling like I'm going to throw up in my mouth, because it was just so trite and just bleh. So I particularly did not care for this book. I just feel like it sends the wrong message out there. And maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm being old-fashioned there, but I didn't like it. I feel like it just really... It could have made something, like, could have had a better impact, like if they talked about the risk and what happens to you if you get into a relationship like that, like how it could destroy you. It could destroy your reputation, and it could just be terrible. It didn't touch on any of that. It romanticized it, and I just, no, I pass. So I did not like this book in particular. And like I said, I'm being over generous with the 1 star. But if you've read this book and you have thoughts on it, please go ahead and put your comments down below. I would love to hear some sort of dialogue from you guys about what you thought about this book, if you've had it in your hands, or about the subject matter. How do you feel about it seems like the growing popularity of having scenarios where there's a teacher / student relationship involved, or it's somebody that is over the age of consent with a minor? Tell me what your thoughts are. This is probably the second book I've read with that kind of scenario. The other one I read was Want to Go Private. That book was published, I think, 10 years ago. And I personally, I thought that book did a very good job in showing the negative aftermath of what happens when you get into something like this, going a relationship that you shouldn't have been involved with in the first place. So please leave your comments below, your thoughts about that. I definitely would like to have some sort of dialogue on what you guys think about this subject matter. If you think that it's something that is healthy for us to discuss at all, or where you saw, you know, maybe a good example of why to stay away from it. And then, of course, the bad examples like this. Obviously, this one was a terrible example. So, yeah, let me know what you think. And, of course, thank you for tuning in and watching. Hopefully, I could get another video out. My goal is to kind of get a video out either tomorrow. Tomorrow's Tuesday, isn't it? Either tomorrow or Wednesday. These days are just kind of mixing together now. But let me know what you think. And of course, the next video that I am going to be doing is going to be focusing on this book. Ivy, I keep wanting to say her last name wrong. It's Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World. I just finished this book today. It's really good. I don't want to go into details about it yet. But yeah, I'll talk about this book next. Other than that, thank you so much for tuning in to Pros Before Bros. Let me know what you think about this. And if you have suggestions on anything else, put them down below. If you're new, thanks for tuning in. Please feel free to subscribe. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.